to have a melting pot of different people of different cultures there.
I think because when there's a certain stereotype that's automatically put onto you, I don't mind educating anybody just as long as they're not playing stupid.
What is your favorite musical of all time?
One of them is The Music Man.
No, you can't say one of them. What is your favorite?
I don't have a favorite.
No, you have to say one favorite right now. What is your favorite musical of all time?
Music Man.
The Music Man. Why?
Well, that movie actually holds a lot of different memories that I had, like in my childhood.
Okay.
I remember looking at it when I was young and everything. So
Mine would, and I always said this before. Mine is The Wiz.
Yeah.
Because I like the perspective of The Wiz. Excuse me. The perspective of The Wiz. It was a young girl from Harlem.
Harlem, yeah.
Which her version of whatever the Wizard of Oz would have been.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it sort of showed what she can identify with. Favorite song?
Favorite song?
On The Music Man.
Oh, on The Music Man.
Favorite song on The Music Man?
The 76 trombones led the big parade. That song.
How I go? How I go?
That's my favorite song on that.
I don't know. I don't remember it. How did it go again?
I did it already.
Do it again one more time.
I did it already. but that is personally my favorite track on the whole soundtrack itself. There's so many other great songs, but that's one
like
song.
What?
Gary, Indiana. That's another good one.
How'd that go?
Gary, Indiana, not Louisiana. Paris, France, New York, or Rose. That
Okay.
one. And then another good one is well, you got trouble, my friend. I don't know all the lyrics just because he
Right
goes
here,
so
River
fast.
City.
Right here, River City, with a capital P that rhymes with P that stands for pool.
That rhymes with P. No, he said it rhymes with T.
No, he
it's
said
capital
P on the last
No,
part.
he said a capital T that rhymes with P and that stands for pool.
I'm sorry, but that is what
Okay.
that's another good one. There's so many different.
So
songs.
give me some of your best songs, favorite songs from different musicals.
Different. Okay.
Top 5 songs from whatever musical.
Top 5. Okay. Another musical. Bye Bye Birdie. Sincere is a good one.
How'd that go?
You gotta be sincere, and then the girls faint. I'm not singing it because.
Okay, what else? What else?
Yeah.
That's one.
Another one. Oh man. Wizard of Oz. The look. I like that.
You like LL Cool J's version?
It's good, but I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
That's two.
Because I find it funny. Number 3, West Side Story. Oh, so many great songs on that one.
Yeah, that is a good musical. It's a good musical.
I like the instrumental to that Latin instrumental Mambo, which is the where the Puerto Ricans and the white people are dancing on their side of the gym.
Oh, okay. In the dance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, even though some of the Afro Latins were doing it better because that was like their thing,
Okay.
But you said.
But that was actually let's use that just for a second. That was 3. But that's what's neat about that is the city was trying to get them both together.
Yeah.
And it was trying to play a little bit of, I guess probably we wasn't there before all that, but probably playing using music to try to keep them together. That was actually pretty good.
Well, using the arts.
Using the arts. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's 3. What's another one?
Okay. You said just name 4.
Yeah, 5.
Oh, 5. Okay, so number 4. I'm gonna have to dig deeper on this. Make 'em laugh from Singing in the Rain.
Make them laugh, singing in the rain. That's a good one.
That's my favorite scene from that whole movie, honestly, just because he's
Animated.
He's very animated with what he does. It's very funny. And last one, I'm gonna have to be cautious on this one. Dang. I like the Wiz's Can You Feel a Brand New Day? Can
Off the
you
Wiz?
feel it? Yeah.
How'd it go?
Can you feel a brand new day?
How'd the verse go?
I work on the music.
That's a good one. Mine would be Sweet Charity, musical Sweet Charity, Rhythm of Life.
That is a good one.
Because, I'm a Sammy Davis Jr. fan.
Yeah.
I would say if we're going to go Wiz, when Michael really had an excellent voice, You Can't Win.
That's a good one.
I'm going to go Putting on the Ritz, Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire, Putting on the Ritz, that's 3. I'm going to go 4. I got to go Annie.
Dang, I should have.
Yeah, I gotta go Annie, man. Hard Knock Life.
Which one? Which Annie?
I'm talking about with Carol Burnett. Not that.
I know.
Yeah, not that. I can't do that new wave stuff. I can't do that new wave.
Second or third one.
No. Carol Burnett on Annie.
She was so animated on that. It was funny because she wasn't drunk, but she was good at playing a drunk.
That's it. That's it. You can't go wrong. Now, there's so many songs on that though.
Yeah.
On Annie that you could pick, but I would have to say Hard Knock Life, just because it's certain songs that when you hear do 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 do,
yeah,
when you hear that, you just
from
know
the opening scene.
Yeah, opening scene. And number 5, dang, that's so hard because I love so many different musicals. But I'm gonna be honest with you because I would say Music Man. That's a good one. But man, I gotta go Guys and Dolls.
Guys and Dolls. I'm surprised.
Marlon Brando before he played The Godfather.
That is good too.
But let me tell you what song. You're Rocking the Boat. Sit down, You're Rocking the Boat.
Had my dice so long.
Yeah, that's a good. That's just that scene, and it's so many scenes in that one that's good.
I'm surprised you didn't pick Grease at all.
Grease was good. I remember I had a crush in elementary on somebody, and I tried to sing You're the One That I Want at lunchtime. Man, why you gotta laugh at me, man? Because they laughed at me. Everybody laughed at me. That brings back trauma. Why you gotta laugh at me, man?
Those are just usual things you think
You're the
about
one that I want.
in first grade. Well, were you singing the girl part too, or were you waiting for her to sing?
No, I said I was waiting for her to sing it.
Did she know it?
I don't think so. But I said, I get chills. They're multiplying.
Oh, wow.
And I start losing self-control because I feel it. You're providing. It's electrifying.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't come. You better shape up. She didn't even do it, man.
Okay.
They laughed at me.
Okay. I'm sorry. Realistically, when you're older now, you start to think like, okay, that probably was the best.
Well, honestly speaking, I wish life was like a musical where we can solve problems just with a song and dance. I could see Trump now and Biden going at it. They jumping across the thing. They could do. We could do the scene. You said the movie. They could do the scene off of West Side Story. The Democrats, Republicans going back at it, jumping through there, and Kamala Harris coming down and Pence coming out. You know what I'm saying?
And then one of them gets killed.
Yeah, and then I don't know about somebody getting killed, but no, that's not no. In that fight scene, somebody did.
2 people got killed actually.
That's right.
Each leader of each gang.
That's right.
The only person the only people that lived was everybody except for the leaders,
which was nothing more than a Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
that's a Romeo and Juliet, classic Romeo and Juliet type of scene.
Because what was sort of messed up was that with that whole thing, Tony, who was who left the Jets and everything, was falling in love with Maria, who was a part of the Sharks, and they didn't like it because she was Puerto Rican and this a white dude. And the effed up thing is the fact that Tony wasn't even affiliated with the Jets anymore. But he had left.
That brings us somewhere though that makes you think of something for a second. Are we always going to be tied to something that people think you're tied to?
What do you mean?
Well, when people look at black people, they automatically think you're part of Black Lives Matter. You see, you know what I'm saying? Or when they see black people, oh, you guys must be Democrat. Do people try to put people in boxes to feel more comfortable?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I believe that, me personally.
Well, that brings us to what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about culture and identity.
Okay.
So the definition of culture, according to the Webster's Dictionary, culture is the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and the arts. Identity, the definition of identity is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. So when we talk about culture and identity, when we was talking about doing the subject, I couldn't help but think different musicals, how a lot of musicals have the same story, but they apply them in a different way of culture. Mm-hmm. So like when you have certain musicals, like we said, West Side Story is nothing more than Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Updated version.
Exactly. The Music Man is nothing more than a story of someone trying to give up his life, being a swindler. He's finally stopped. He falls in love,
and he starts to have a passion for
exactly. But a lot of things in these musicals, they always have something where someone can identify.
Okay.
And that also reminds me of a good song. It doesn't matter what genre a song is. There's certain emotions and feelings that everybody can have to identify, or not only that, but certain styles of music will help me understand the culture of like the South. Okay. South hip hop.
Southern hip hop is different.
It's different than the
Midwest hip hop, different from West Coast, different from East Coast.
Yep.
Because what it is that even going down to genres, there's a base sound of everything that makes what is. So kind of like we've talked about this before. Kind of like with the West Coast, the basis sound for you to know if it's West Coast or not is if it's more fusion based of music, because they had synthesizers that they were adding over samples and they were switching things up. And then a way for you to know if what was East Coast is if it was more jazzy or more dustier and more raw, and with the South if it was more blues based. Like straight up.
So let's go out of hip hop and let's go like in the 70s, because you got a lot of bands that came out the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Then you had bands. You had in the late 60s too. You had people going to the Midwest too to
get that sound.
The Chicago blues scene. That was very common to see a lot of different blues players. Like come down to Chess Records just to get recordings and get signed and travel the world and make money doing what they do.
So does culture, when it comes to music, then does culture even, will we even say a culture is in how they made records? Because Motown had a culture.
Yeah.
And how they did it. Is that just part of culture also, how you do things?
Yeah, I think you can make your own culture too. Because each person that does music has made their own type of culture, like a subculture, if that makes sense. Because a subculture is nothing more than just like you have this big, you have, imagine the earth, you got the outer crust, and the subculture is just the inner and within the crust.
So you can't have the subculture without the outer culture? Is that what you're saying?
You have to have the outer culture in order to create some type of subculture, because you need a base for everything. If you have no foundation, you don't have anything.
Okay. So let's use this with musicals and music, musicals and music. So you got blues.
Yeah.
Let's start with blues. What came out of blues?
Oh, what do you mean, like what it formed?
Yeah, what it formed to. What is the basis of blues then? What is the culture base of blues? The beginning when blues first started, what was that culture? Where did it come from?
Well, in the beginning, that came from the early stages of slavery, with us talking about our depression. That's why they call it the blues. The term "I'm feeling blue," "I'm feeling sad," and we just talked about our livelihood and kind of like what Ice Cube will say, it's reality. And if you're speaking about the dark side of whatever, it's not glamorizing it. You're talking about how you want to get out of it, and what you want to get out of it.
So then that evolved, blues evolved to what?
It evolved into different genres. It helped develop country.
Okay. So country was the perspective of that was their perspective of going through, because a lot of country songs sort of sad.
Yeah.
Great storytelling.
It was more of, I guess you could say, the more poppy version of the blues, because the thing is that you have the blues, which is the basics of everything. Then you move on to country. It's more easier. It's more easier chords and easier notes, because you don't have to necessarily bend a string every 2 seconds to make the notes cry. You have to. It's more of just you just play a few chords and strum and have good lyrics involved with it. So blues is more complex than what it's given credit for into starting whatever.
So both are telling stories.
Both are telling stories.
So then you got country. Then what evolved after that?
Okay, so during the same time of country, you had new elements of like folk coming in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Give me some folk people.
More later person from like the 50s and 60s, Bob Dylan. He's an example.
Okay. All that, so it's more ringy, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can sort of hear elements of country with what he does, but it's not necessarily full on country.
So what makes the difference between what's their expression, their subculture of? Is there a subculture of country?
Subculture, I think. That's a good question. As far as describe, what do you mean by?
So was it country first, then folk?
No, they came around the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So folk was probably their version of people that wasn't doing country.
Yeah.
That was another genre that was.
Yeah, that was more straightforward towards like.
Because I love my favorite song. I always say, "If I had a hammer," they were folk singers.
Yeah.
Man, why you always laugh when I'm talking about that?
Well, here's the thing. The blues was more edgier, so you needed something. You still needed something that's the basis of that same genre that seemed less threatening to the public eye.
Okay.
Because with the edginess, there was songs about. There was Robert Johnson had songs about him being schizophrenic. Okay. Like believing the devil and everything.
So basically it was
the darker side,
because was it a reflection of what he was going through?
Of what every black person was going through at the time in America. And then so then later on, of course, now you got the blues shifting and turning more heavier and more heavier, where you got the term rock and roll.
So when did gospel come in?
Oh, okay.
So was gospel the not the dark side?
That's the more happier side.
Okay.
Same with country, but they just play it differently. Folk is more like an in between type of thing. It's not too dark, but not too light. It's more of like a gray area.
And then folk is a great storytelling.
Oh,
right?
yeah, great storytelling.
We talked about more folk tales.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Bob Dylan or Neil Young is another great example. He's Canadian, but he definitely had the folk sensibility of what he did at the time. And then you also had Buffalo Springfield. That's another example. But yeah, so then towards gospel, that came around that time of early stages of blues.
So basically, so then that's the bright side
as well. Yeah,
because if blues was a dark side, that was a bright side. Because let's be honest, blues talked about sexual content too. It was a lot of sexual content,
the demonic
stuff. Or crazier. I'm drunk, and this and goes deeper.
Real life.
Like okay. Real life which is what rap evolved. Which is what your NWA's. A-Ball, MG or what is it? A-Ball, MJG or whatever. Do you also, but because what I'm saying is there's a lot of Southern guys.
Yeah.
So is that part of that same spirit?
UGK.
Oh yeah, I love UJ.
Underground
Back,
Kings,
front, back, and side to side.
Yeah.
Never let
Underground Kings.
ride. I'm sorry, man. That's my song.
Yeah. UGK.
So are they taking on, or Ti made it more popular? But a lot of those Southern rappers, are they still?
We're
still part
we're
of
sticking
that?
to the South with this conversation.
Yeah,
or
well, no, we're gonna move up.
Okay.
But I just want to talk about how important the South is, and people don't realize that how the jazz evolved even on Sundays when a lot of slaves didn't have to didn't have to work, exactly, where they did a lot of stuff as far as jazz and how jazz were created from out of that, because then you had the brass bands even up to today, the brass bands and stuff of that, and that what I love about even Southern hip hop, Southern blues, things that come from Southern is that bottom, either that brass tuba or that bass.
Yeah, and everything that involved with just the basis of the foundation of what the blues started. It's been like that since the beginning because we grew up in that environment. I'm sorry, speaking to the mic. We grew up in that environment, so you have to speak about these things in order to prevent certain things like this from happening again. If not to you, to another person.
So let me ask this: if we're gonna even talk when the slaves was even talking about the Underground Railroad, they used songs.
Yeah. To help them out.
To help them go.
Their directions, 100%.
So culture-wise, the people in that culture that were slaves
that went
understood that culture.
They understood.
They're saying something to me. Okay, so speaking in code. Now, so is music still in code? Is
100%. A lot of things in music are Follow the Drinking Gourd is no different from other political songs. That was a political song, but more of a political, like in a sense of which direction to go to get to where you need to go, sending out a message. You know what I mean?
So is WAP a political song?
Definitely not.
Just ask it, man.
Gonna make me get off subject now. Dang.
No, but going back to culture, people, because they were part of that culture, they understood where they needed to go. Now, what I love about Culture and Identity is NWA sold more albums to people that didn't even understand that culture.
Yeah.
So this is a great way for us to spread our culture to other people, or other people understand our culture, or understanding other people's culture. It's more for us all to identify with one another.
To identify with one another, that's one thing, but to also let everybody know that this is our culture, this is what we're about, and we're trying to get out of this, out of this situation, so that way we don't have to, keep worrying about watching our backs.
So making money off of my pain.
Making money off, you could call it that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Making money off your pain, you're telling your story, and you're telling your livelihood of what you witnessed or everything that was around you. Almost a motivational speaker, in a sense of a motivational speaker, or preachers, even a glorified motivational speaker trying to motivate people and telling their story and making a living from telling their story.
So now let's go. So we got blues, rock, country.
Mm-hmm.
Gospel. It's 4 different cultures.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? When now subcultures. Oh, excuse me. Where did rock come in?
All right, so rock came around towards the 50s, relatively towards the 50s, where the term rock and roll, it was originally called rock and roll, and that term meant,
well, first it was sex. So first it was a sex thing.
It meant doing it.
Rock and roll.
But then later on, they started to use the word and put it into a different context to the style. Because before then, blues and rock and roll, both of those genres that are related to each other, what it was is that they could be raunchy if they wanted to. But it was more of a, like, not like WAP or anything. It wasn't like that, where you're sort of like
More like a rebel.
more like a rebel, yeah. And you needed that because there were people that weren't rebellious in a certain fashion, that were just trying, that were just haters, if that makes sense.
What is it? What I think too, you have to have that for progression.
Yeah.
To progress, you got to always have somebody. You can't.
Yeah.
Well, somebody, I was reading something the other day, and they said you got to have bad in order for you to appreciate good.
Yeah.
So you got to have extremes.
Yeah.
So then you have rock that came. What are different types of rock that?
All right. So within that time, you of course had traditional rock and roll, which were like your Elvis Presleys, your Chuck Berrys. I want to name one more person. So many people you got to name out.
Yeah.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Come on, man,
another
you got to say
example.
Little Richard, man.
No, of course.
The architect of rock and roll. Because the reason I say that is Little Richard's, a lot of his songs were dirty.
Of course, it's funny because he was he was a preacher. Well, no, he was a Christian going to church. But I mean, another thing too.
What you saying, Christians do crazy stuff too.
I know, and
Yeah, I mean,
and
but
I
it's
feel
good and bad.
if you claim that you follow a certain guideline, you know.
But everybody's not perfect.
But of course, but then just say, okay, I'm not a part of this lifestyle. I'd rather you say that instead of you just saying that you're a part of it and then you just don't follow the rules or regulations that are involved.
Yeah, that's all on them, man. That's all
bro.
on them. So then you have that's the classic rock and roll.
Well, anything that is relevant up to now and that has helped up to now is a classic. Let me just put that out, because when a person says classic rock, I get confused when I hear that, because any song that has helped move forward and transcend time is a classic.
So tell me, where did funk come from then?
All right, so the funk that's Midwest. That goes all the way back to Midwest, where you had elements of R&B and elements of rock, and we'll go to the rock genres in like a second. Elements of later rock, mixing that together, and just taking the different things that James Brown had put onto the table with what he did with different progressions with bass guitars, and
So what was that? Why you think that came out of the Midwest?
Well, that came out of the Midwest.
Because there's so many neat things that came out the Midwest, like bands.
But it was an official thing. It was an official package culture in Ohio.
Okay.
That's where it was
Like name some of the Midwest people.
Well, Funkadelic, Parliament Funkadelic, but Funkadelic itself, they moved over to the Midwest when they were developing the style, because they were a doo-wop group at first, the Parliaments.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They did doo-wop?
They were the barbershop quartet at first, and
George Clinton was a barbershop quartet dude.
He was a barber. He had the perm and everything when he was it was like towards out of high school. He grew up in North Carolina at the time. Temptations were popping at the time. You had Little Anthony, Frankie Lyman. You had all those different people who were popping at the time, and he had friends that worked at the barbershop.
So he had Atomic Dog was a doo-wop song?
Yes.
He started doo-wop
This
first?
was back in the like late 50s, early 60s, but then later on, George Clinton started to witness the change of music, because after the doo-wop stuff was sort of drying out, it was becoming something brand new, which was the R&B, the more heavy edge R&B, which was the James Browns, your Bobby Birds, all of that.
Let me stop you on that just for a second, because you said he started seeing things change, and what I love about that kind of stuff, he starts seeing the culture change. Mm-hmm. That's really what you're saying. He had a pulse.
To see it evolve.
Yeah, there you go, and that's culture. The culture, the climate at the time. Because what you were saying, when was that?
This was like during the late 50s, early 60s.
See, and think about what was going on even in America or in the world, 50s to 60s. Like, just to hear that and what keeping his pulse on things. But go ahead.
So he started to see that, and he put a group together. He put the group together, and he actually was trying to sign to Motown. what happened was that they were auditioning for Motown, went all the way down to Detroit just to perform for Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy paused for a second. He said, "You guys are too ugly." And
Berry Gordy called him ugly.
he said that all the guys were too ugly. And what's messed up is that the different band members that joined, first let me say, they were called the Parliaments at first. They named themselves after a cigarette brand. But then they changed their names afterwards to Funkadelic when they found a group that they named Funkadelic, which was just the band, the backing band.
Oh, okay.
Which featured Billy Bass Nelson, Eddie Hazel on lead guitar, who was like one of the original Funkadelic members. You had Star Child, but they didn't start coming up with the names till like later on. So what happened was that they actually stayed in the Midwest, Detroit to be exact, and they actually were a part of the psychedelic rock movement because they were a mixture of funk and psychedelic rock. They recorded a track called "I Want to Testify," which was a political song because of what was going on in the late '60s at the time, and it was a local success. They ended up touring off of that, and they during 1969 they recorded their first record and added more members to the band. They had like close to like 20 different members. They had like 3 different background singers, 3 different bass guitarists, and Bootsy later on joined. It was a whole new movement going on.
So who else came out of the Midwest?
Of course, Jackson 5. Everybody from the Jackson 5 came from the Midwest. Jackson family.
Yeah.
Because everyone has broken like through such.
Would we say that Jackson 5 had their own sound though?
Own sound? What do you mean by that?
Well,
because they were R&B, of course. That was the basis of their sound.
But would we say there was more of a machine that Motown put together, right? So I'm talking about more culture, the culture of the Midwest and that sound. I guess that's Motown sound, all right?
No, I wouldn't say that. That's
because I never even thought Motown was Midwest. Like it was almost.
So was Jackson 5.
That's crazy. But what I'm saying is Motown had their own sound. Not a down. That's not a slight. I'm not slighting the Jackson 5 at all. What I'm saying is wasn't all part of that because if you think about it now, Marvin Gaye.
Yeah,
that's Midwest, and they all had this certain sound.
Aretha Franklin, she's from Detroit.
Yeah, that's Midwest.
But then another Midwest artist that came out specifically from Ohio was Zapp.
Yeah.
Zapp. They came from Ohio.
So they represented that Midwest culture, that
new
Midwest,
wave of like Midwest, because funk itself was this like brand new thing coming in. Just in like different forms, different mixtures being put into the pot. But sort of going back to what we said before with like what rock genres started to come in, or subgenres of rock started to come in. Of course, psychedelic rock, because you had Funkadelic coming in at the scene, who started to see what was going on. But then you also had early heavy metal that was getting ready to start. Mainly towards the late 60s, early 70s.
So what part of the country was that?
A lot of metal. The first metal band documented that some metalheads will really look into is Blue Cheer. It came from West Coast, specifically from the Bay Area, San Francisco.
A lot of stuff
California.
Came from the Bay Area.
Yeah, San Francisco, California was where they were from, and you got to really be into like the culture of music to really know who they are, But they were documented as like one of the very first heavy metal bands.
So what was a heavy metal a mixture of what different types of cultures and music?
Okay, that's a mixture of psychedelic rock, hard rock, and hard rock is another subgenre from rock and roll. Because rock and roll itself, are the simple blues scale that they'll do in a fast pace. But hard rock adds more distortion to the guitars, more heaviness to the bass guitars, heaviness to the drums.
Or let's talk about lyrics. Lyrics wise, what is it heavier there? Is it more? Does that go dark too?
The lyrics stay in the same place of where it's always been with the blues, still dark.
Okay.
But also
that's what I wanted you to say. I wanted everybody to make sure that's still that blues. So that's expression, because heavy metal, a lot of the white people did heavy metal, because we got black heavy metal bands, of course.
Yeah.
But it's their expression of that same genre,
Yeah,
of
and
that
then-
same culture.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that because I want to make sure that people understand it was something in common there. So all heavy metal people feel that in common. Where I'm feeling this is that dark side of all blues.
the hard rock as well too.
Yeah.
Because because a lot of that metal, the early heavy metal at the time, the lead singers, most of them in hard rock bands too, would look up to R&B singers because at the time,
Really?
yeah. Because at the time, of course, R&B had its hand in different elements because it was an alternative of the blues, rhythm and blues. It's just more of a steady pace added on to the genre of blues. But the thing is that like early heavy metal with like Led Zeppelin, the lead singer Robert Plant was actually into Black New Orleans jazz music.
Really?
Yeah, he said in an interview like the day that he got into that, he started to like see things differently. His parents thought it was a bunch of ruckus because it was very loud and very, but he looked up to that. He also had.
Well, I'm saying really because where's Led Zeppelin from?
They're from England.
What's
They're
neat about that is it almost goes back to those roots. That seed that was planted down there from pain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everything went back to the roots. So I'm just amazed by that.
Yeah. And, back then, of course, there's still some people who do it now, but you really had to like sing like your heart out to really feel the blues. Not saying that there aren't any people who do that today. It's just that like you still had to like bring it. You know what I'm saying? So that was an automatic thing. But then
So basically culture. Let me ask you this. It's more about culture than race. Would you say that?
yeah.
Because there's certain things that we can identify with each other through culture instead of race. Everything has a certain culture about it. My high school I went to, if I said certain things that happened in that high school, at LaSalle High School, and I said something about our pep assemblies, people would understand the culture of that pep assembly. If I talked about our band in high school, people would understand the culture. Our household has a certain culture
Yeah.
to it. And people, if we express our culture through our art, people can pretty much now identify with your culture better, right?
Yeah.
They could probably understand it. If I saw a movie, if I saw something, and it's something in that culture that I could understand you better. Is that pretty much what we're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Because the way that the way that they thought, they were trying to put race aside because the problem with that is that there's so much that you can learn from this side.
Well, we have so much in common.
Yeah.
We have more in common then.
Yeah.
And then remember, race is nothing but outside the country, they talk more nationality.
Of course, yeah.
Race, they talk, it's more of an American thing.
Yeah,
It's more of an American thing. And it's unfortunate because when you talk more culture instead of race, you understand things a lot differently and a lot better. We've seen movies where you could tell that maybe the director didn't understand the culture of that, and then
I know what movie
they're
you're
sort of
talking about.
they're where you sit there like, okay, you don't really understand the culture of this, where you're not even getting those actors or actresses to express the culture. Where there's other movies where you could understand the culture, like let's even say Schindler's List, that talks about the Jewish Holocaust. With Steven Spielberg, when he directed it, he understands that culture.
Yeah.
He grew up. Him being Jewish, he grew up around that culture. He understands. He was told stories and understand that.
or another example, a movie called Mid-90s. That movie takes place in, of course, 1995, in Los Angeles, California, about this young kid who tries to find a place to fit in. So he starts to hang with the skater rats, and he becomes like one of them in family. Jonah, the actor, he's from the 21 Jump Street. He was,
Okay.
yeah. Forgot his name. But he directed the film because it's not a biopic, but it was the basis of his storyline of how he came up.
Yep.
And he even explained, like, with him writing and directing and producing the movie, he explained, like, to the even down to the filmers who will hold the cameras, like, this is like what this is about, so that way they could get the fuller essence of what they should capture with the film.
Understanding the culture.
Yeah. Of skate culture.
So
I understood it too because I had skater friends.
Yeah.
That
I remember when you tried to roll the skate too. You fell on your ass. You remember that?
Well, yeah, that was I didn't know how to ride a bike either.
Yeah, but you fell on your ass. I just want to.
Well, yeah, I don't fall
because you didn't
anymore.
understand the culture.
Well, keep in mind, keep in mind that was before I even had the internet.
So what that got to do with anything?
That was before there was a lot of things I got schooled on. I later on got schooled.
So you start studying the culture. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and me, I don't fall off of a skateboard anymore. Let me just say that now.
I'm just saying when it happened.
Yeah, but I am down.
So, but it's more about culture than it is about race on everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what we're getting out of this, where even in musicals, we start off with musicals. You could identify with certain musicals because it talked about a certain culture, but even musicals is culture. People that like musicals, that's a whole culture.
Yeah.
You have subcultures inside of all kinds of different cultures.
They got different cultures mixing with each other.
Exactly. So
an example of that, and this is sort of just to bring back, skating culture, but Eazy-E, back in like 1989, when he was in like Los Angeles, he was at Venice Beach. That's where like a lot of artistic and outcast kids would do their thing at, whether it was dancers or skaters or whatever. He was actually the first skater in hip hop. He was the first one to integrate hip hop culture with skate culture, which is why it's very common. It's very common to see a lot of people from the golden age, but even today in the underground hip hop area where there's a lot of skaters involved.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I found out about that later. That a lot of skaters like the hip hop culture.
Yeah, they're down. That's almost like I'm not gonna say
Lil Wayne is a skater, right?
Well, yeah, he's a skater. Whatever he does, but yeah, he is a skater. But then you also had the Beastie Boys. They were skaters, and they were a part of like the underground hip hop punk scene as well. So you had so many different people involved in that new transition or evolution
of culture.
Yeah, that's why a lot of skaters support certain elements of hip hop, mainly the mainly the less commercialized version, because the commercialized version can be seen as corny sometimes. That's why I say underground a lot, because that's like the straightforward. We're doing this ourselves.
Yeah, doing it for the love of the culture.
Doing it for the love of the culture,
and not for the money and the glamour thing.
Yeah. Now, even though we are getting the money, we're still doing it for the culture. That type of thing. So
So I think that's it. We're gonna wind up, man. Anything you wanted to say to everybody?
Everybody who's watching this, please follow my band at KOM Band Music on every single social media platform, from Facebook, Twitter to Instagram and YouTube even. You can also follow me on my personal page at Instagram at Maximus Keys, or if you don't know how to spell that, search up Max Effects, like DOS Effects.
Okay, cool. I think that's it, man. Remember, you don't get out of life what you want. You get out of life what you expect. To have a melting pot of different people of different cultures there.
Because when there's a certain stereotype that's automatically put onto you, I don't mind educating anybody just as long as they're not playing stupid.